Hi, my name is Rachel Graham, and I am an environmental health specialist, and I work for the Arkansas Department of Health. Today, I will be presenting to you a local high school science group on the Gulf oil spill. I'm going to talk about the spill in general, and then I'm going to talk about how it affects you all specifically. Here is an outline of what I'm going to talk about today. First, I'm going to explain what the Gulf oil spill is and its impact on the environment. Then, I'm going to discuss how scientists have been treating the spill, both at the beginning of the spill and still today. Then, I'm going to talk about why all of this matters to you guys as the future scientists, leaders, and decision makers. So first, it is important to know what the Gulf oil spill is. It's commonly known as Deepwater Horizon, so you may have heard of it in reference to that instead. It occurred in the Gulf of Mexico on April 20th, 2010, when an oil rig owned by BP Exploration and Production exploded and fell into the ocean. The leakage of oil from this explosion continued for about 87 days, leading to a total of about 4.9 million barrels of oil being released into the sea. The immediate cause of death for this disaster was the death of 11 workers who were on the oil rig as it fell into the ocean. Overall, this oil spill affected at least 68,000 square miles, affecting the water surrounding several states, including Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So, what exactly is this oil that was spilled into the ocean? This oil was unprocessed, so it's called crude oil, which is a complex mixture of a host of volatile organic chemicals, including toxic chemicals such as benzene, toluene, xylene, ethylbenzene, and a host of other chemicals. It's also important to know what a slick is. Because oil is hydrophobic, it floats on top of the water instead of mixing with it. The oil combines to form a layer that is typically a few millimeters thick, forming what is called a slick. The reflection of light on the oil-water mixture can cause a rainbow appearance, as you can see here. Now that you know what the Gulf oil spill is, we can begin to discuss the impact of the spill. As you can imagine, such a large oil spill had a great effect on the surrounding habitat. The main creatures that were affected by this oil spill are dolphins, 5 species of sea turtles, whales, and pelicans. Overall, all of the marine life which was exposed to the oil experienced reproductive failure and organ damage. A total of 20% of Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, which is one of the 5 species of sea turtles found in the Gulf of Mexico, ended up perishing. There was also a 50% decline in the bottlenose dolphin population. The Gulf oil spill also impacted many local fisheries who depended on the killifish. These common bait fish were exposed to the oil, causing a decrease in their cellular function. The development of mahi-mahi and bluefin tuna was also stunted due to this exposure. As you can imagine, the decrease in development of these 3 species of fish drastically impacted the fishing industrial community. Many fisheries were negatively impacted, as well as local fishermen whose job it was to catch the mahi-mahi and bluefin tuna, and then had to release these tuna back into the ocean when their growth was stunted and they were not able to reach capture weight. Not only did the oil spill impact the industry and animals that were alive at the time, but they also had a ripple effect, impacting the ecosystem for generations to come. Now that you have adequate knowledge of the Gulf oil spill and its impact, it is important to understand how scientists have treated the spill. One of the first actions taken whenever there is an oil spill is to surround the area with floating booms, which are the orange objects pictured here. They form a physical barrier in order to prevent further spreading of the oil slick throughout the ocean. Then the cleanup crew drives skimmers through the slick, which are boats that have a part that skims the top of the water. This is done in an attempt to remove as much of the oil as possible before it can contaminate the ocean further. The third line of action for physical removal method is the use of sorbents, which can absorb some of the oil almost like a sponge. Some common sorbents that are used are peat moss, straw, hay, clay, and volcanic ash, all of which are sprinkled on top of the water in order to absorb the oil. After the physical cleanup methods, the chemical cleanup can begin. Cleanup workers use dispersants to break up the large slicks that form, since these slicks are detrimental for the coastal ecosystems. These dispersants work by breaking the slicks up into smaller pieces, which can mix more easily with water. These smaller particles of oil can then be broken up by bacteria, further dispersed through the ocean, and eventually form sediment on the bottom of the ocean, thereby decreasing the oil slick and decreasing the appearance of the oil spill. For the Gulf oil spill, a total of 1.4 million gallons of chemical dispersants were used. These dispersants were sprayed over the ocean, as pictured here, by planes and helicopters. However, they were also injected straight into the wellhead, which is the source of the leak. This is a dispersant treatment method which is unique to the BP oil spill, and later analysis has determined that it likely wasn't very effective in decreasing the overall amount of oil that was spilled into the ocean. The specific dispersants used in the Gulf oil spill were Corexit 9500A and Corexit 9527A. These dispersants were an interesting choice, as they are considered to be less effective and more toxic than many of the other EPA-approved dispersants. In fact, there were two dispersants which were found to be 100% effective for the oil spill in the Gulf, as compared to the two that they used, which were less than 70% effective. In fact, these two Corexit dispersants are so dangerous that their use was banned in the UK. Even though this clearly wasn't the best choice, it is hypothesized that Corexit was used due to BP Oil's ties with Nalco Company, which is the company that produced this specific dispersant. So now you know what the oil spill is, what its impact was, and how it was treated. But why is this important? Why should you, a group of high schoolers, care about this event that has come and gone? Even though the oil spill was in the past, its effects are still impacting us today. The Gulf oil spill was the cause of a vast amount of ecological damage, decreasing many species in the area, including the ones listed above of 5 species of sea turtles, bottlenose dolphins, and many bird species as well. Not only was this spill preventable through following the protocol maintenance checks, but the damage was only further increased due to cleanup attempts, which should have decreased the damage. The Corexit oil dispersant, which was used, created a toxic environment for fish, coral, and birds. This is because not only was Corexit itself toxic, but the way in which it broke up the oil spill caused oil droplets to spread throughout the ocean, and it's much more likely for fish and other creatures to be able to consume one oil droplet that contains the Corexit and has been broken up by that, as opposed to eating a part of the actual oil slick. Likewise, whenever Corexit broke up the slick into the droplets, they were able to fall to the bottom of the ocean and land on many of the coral that were living in this area, thereby causing toxic damage to the coral that would not have otherwise occurred. The use of Corexit also led to harm of the humans who were exposed to the dispersant during application. So many of the BP employees who were hired to come in and fix the situation were put in damage to their health as well. It has been shown that exposure to this Corexit can cause injury to red blood cells, the kidney, and the liver. In fact, many of the workers found urine in their blood later on and have experienced various health issues that they likely would not have experienced otherwise. And this is according to research and studies done by Zelinsky in 2015, and then there was a follow-up with those employees in a research article written by DeAndrea in 2018. As the future generation of scientists, businessmen and women, and decision makers, I implore you to heed the warnings of this catastrophic event. Remember to always follow protocol, ensure safety, and make wise decisions, weighing the pros and cons of various options in the face of strong marketing from many different companies. Thank you guys so much for providing me with the time to be able to educate you on what the Gulf oil spill is, the impact that it had on the habitat, how scientists chose to treat the oil spill, and why it matters to you guys, the future generation. I hope that you can now see the detrimental effects of such an oil spill and can understand the harmful consequences of its cleanup efforts, and that you can learn from the mistakes of those who came before you. So thank you guys so much, and here you can see my big bibliography of all of the sources which aided me in finding this information to share with you guys. Thanks!